Welcome to QInsight from QGate, where we talk with business leaders about the realities of CRM, AI, and transformation. I'm Steve Clarke.
And I'm Alastair Jupp. In today's episode, we're joined by Will Hansen, sales leader at Xtremepush, a unified CDP dominating the AI gaming space. In this episode, we'll be talking about the line between human and AI decision-making, campaigns that write themselves, and why the best AI strategy still includes humans.
Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Steve and Alastair. Glad to be here.
Excellent stuff. Well, so in our series of podcasts so far, we've been exploring CRM and AI obviously being the dominant topic at the moment. And we've really explored perhaps some of the pitfalls in AI and maybe adopting it and deploying it, things like governance or perhaps the resistance to businesses and employees adopting AI for various different reasons. But one thing we've not really focused on is actually what AI can do, the benefits of AI for productivity and whatever else that might look like. So I'm going to kick things off with quite a broad question, but what does good AI actually look like?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Steve. So I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to surviving in a sales team in MarTech. So I've been around for about 10 years in the MarTech industry, and I'm coming on 6 years with Xtremepush. And I sit in our sales side. So obviously I look at our product and what we take to market, and then most of my job is getting customers asking about the things that they want, whether they're achievable or not achievable is what we see. So what's really heavy in the market at the moment about what is good AI is solely focused on things that are being dressed up as AI that are actually not AI, but they're giving deliverables to marketers that are what they're after. But I think it kind of falls into kind of broad categories, right? It's tooling that speeds things up for teams on a marketing team or even on a sales team when you talk about sales CRM. It's the ability to do things automatically, take away that manual effort. So it's the speed piece there as well. And then it's a deeper piece around being able to understand customer data better and be able to react and respond to it more quickly. So I think that's what really good AI looks like. You can take all of those flagship brands like Spotify or even like Meta or the Google environments and some of the stuff that they're doing, okay? Good AI can be plugging in a question to GPT or into the Google search engine and getting an answer, or it can look like, here's a playlist that we've made for you on Spotify because you've been listening to, I don't know, death metal this week or whatever it was I was listening to at the start of the week. Depends on your mood, right? So like, I think there are companies that are leading the way with it. How much of it is AI or it's rules-based stuff is what you would need to get under the hood and have a look at, I think.
I think for me, good AI doesn't just automate things.
Yeah.
It automates decisions, right? It learns from your data, it recognizes patterns in customer behavior, adapts. It's not just a fancy automation where it's trigger, automate. So you're not manually planning every campaign, every follow-up, every post. It's doing it for you. For me, good AI can help you know what to say, when to say it, and who to say it to, right? That's the key part for me. But the big thing in all of this is good AI has to be based on great data, right? You could have an amazing AI platform, but if it's not on great data, what you're getting is just not going to do what you want it to do.
But that's an adage in our line of work, though, isn't it? You put rubbish in, you get rubbish out, and that's nothing new. We've always known that about any particular database and any particular reports that might be generated off of it. Well, I just want to go back to something you said that AI in its actual defined form as we see it now is probably true AI, and we kind of look at what we've perceived as being AI previously is actually just a load of rules and logic. So now we're really at the point where proper AI, if we can even call it, is really going to take the reins and go off, and it can go off on so many different tangents. But I suppose that human element needs to remain for the fears that I was talking about. This is where we need someone like you or I, sales marketing, whoever it might be, to have a hand in what's going on.
Yeah, I think what you've said there is important, right? So we're just entering this phase now. We've been talking about it probably for 4 or 5 years in the market, on and off. Um, I would be arguing that most brands are dressing up a lot of what they're doing as AI, but it's still probably rules based in a black box somewhere. And Alastair, what you're talking about there, exactly right. Decisioning, learning, it's that ability to learn without input, that is becoming so much more important within the AI layer. So it's taking all of the data, letting it make decisions for you, and then being able to trust that those decisions are right. Whereas 95% of our CRM work on the marketing side, is still rules based, where we're going, user does action, it's in real time, it affects their data set, therefore they've gone into a churn journey, or they've gone into a VIP journey, or whatever it might be. We want to then go and target those users. A lot of that is still just rules based information based on their spend behavior, their browsing patterns, what they're doing on a website. What we're seeing now, though, is brands being able to put all of that into one place, put it through algorithmic tests, whether that's doing like a regression test, doing a binary test, and then feeding all of those key bits of data out. What I see very interesting in the iGaming industry that we work with is that brands that are doing that are starting to see things either being reinforced within their positioning on what they've been doing from rule set. So is the reason that someone is not betting with us as a sports book because they haven't done a bet in the last 7 days because our offer is weak, all these things that go into that. That might have been the major factor. But what algorithms are being able to do is look down the line and look back at historical data and understand that, yes, that for 80% of your customers, this is probably the most important metric that you need to fix. But here's a subset of 10, 15% of customers that has absolutely nothing to do with their betting history with you, as to whether they're going to bet again. They're completely seasonal. They're not churned. They're going to come back every Cheltenham, that type of thing. So it's about reinforcing things that we know, but getting the right insights from them. But the prediction and the ability to layer that on top, that's the next frontier that I think marketers are going to unlock, where we're going to get away from reaction and then into kind of like activations beforehand.
So we're talking about the very cutting edge
Yep.
of what AI can do in these scenarios and the algorithms that you could apply to them. Ali, I wanted to strip this back to the absolute basics and fundamentals, and something we deal with on a daily basis in our line of work in CRM and obviously now AI. Very simply, what does good data look like? What is good data when we're talking about the context of that can then be used by AI to go and do all these wild and wonderful things?
The world hasn't changed, right? We've been talking about good data for your CRM for forever, right? And your analytics has to be based on good data. You think about your kids, right? Whatever you feed into their head is what you help shape what they become. And it's exactly the same as an AI platform. Whatever you're feeding into it is what you're going to get out of it. I think if it doesn't have access to proper transactional data, things like customer behavior, what people are actually buying, it simply can't make meaningful recommendations, right? If it hasn't got access to that data. And that data changes over time, right? Which is, so, you have to keep monitoring what the output is because the data is continuously changing. Maybe you have data in your CRM or your email tool. I think the real power is when all that data is then connected together into one place.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's a really difficult one for businesses, big or small, out there to know if their data's any good, because you're going to go through the various checks and balances. You can audit, you can make sure you believe you have everything in place, that your house is in order, and then you let AI loose, and then you trust the output because you've put all those safeguards in place. But I guess there has to be scenarios, Will, when these customers aren't ready. So how do we help them? What for you as a business, what did you do to make sure you were doing to safeguard against that eventuality?
Yeah, so there's probably two aspects here, right? And I think this is what's important. It's about what are the things that can be easily deployed for a marketing team that are going to help them straight away? Okay. And these are the low hanging fruits that Xtremepush would have picked up on. And I would argue most of the CRMs are already getting ahead of. Okay. So how do we help in content creation? How do we help plug in disparate tools so that we're not copy edit from ChatGPT that we're writing and then having to put it in an email template within the CRM, and I've got to have 2 or 3 tools open. How do we put that stuff in a marketer's hands straight away? That doesn't necessarily rely on a big lift and being able to get good customer data. That's just helping you on your day-to-day to speed up. So those types of things are where we started with our foundation, and they tended to be the things that marketers were asking for at the start. What we're seeing now is that brands are putting more trust in their CRM and retention teams to understand data and then be able to start to go after customers or work in a data-centric environment. Pretty rarely do I talk to CRM or retention managers or even CMOs at this point that are like purely email focused or purely above the line focused. Most of them pretty much have a data background now in the way that they work. Whether they're skillful enough to work in things like SQL or whatever is up for debate. But what they do have an understanding of is, like Alastair's talking about, if I have all of this transactional data, what do I actually need from a use case perspective to go and do something? What do I need to determine whether someone's going to buy another product, do something else on my platform or churn? What are those key data points and how do I get them into my marketing flows? And that tends to be the big piece where you can solve quickly. How do you democratize that data and then put it in a place where a marketer with low-level technical skill can go in and start to do data science work? And whether that's applying it to an algorithm or applying rule sets, that's what modern kind of unified CRM is heading towards now. That's just allowing teams not to have to put in a tech ticket into their data science teams that are sitting there dealing with requests from the board or the commercial side of the business asking for commercial information, or the product side of the business asking for cost flows on what they're deploying. This is the marketing team being able to access the right data at the right time. Yeah.
It used to be easy. Well, it used to be easy to identify bad data, right? It used to be your charts wouldn't look right, or you had duplications in your system. It's a lot more challenging now. The data's a lot vaster for starters, right? And and it's all being joined together, and it's coming from multiple sources. It's a lot harder now to keep your data clean, I think.
So there's almost a prerequisite now in these kind of CMO positions, where it used to be in the job description was you need to know SEO, you need to know pay-per-click.
Yeah.
Now you need to know AI. And I think actually that's probably not exclusive to, even leadership roles, because, and actually just and we spoke earlier in the series of podcasts about graduates and what they can bring to organizations, because they're so encompassed in it when they're going through education, encompassed with AI, that actually they're bringing a viewpoint and a perspective that we don't have necessarily as people that have kind of come into AI and adopted it in our working practices. So, and it's self-fulfilling in the sense that you'll need someone that will understand AI. They're going to use AI to help them understand AI if it's not kind of been a core principle of their roles. So, well, look, at the beginning, Ali introduced you an Xtremepush, a unified CDP dominating the iGaming space. Tell us what is a CDP, and we know CRM. What is the difference? What are they? What's a CDP?
Yeah, this is good, and I swear I didn't pay you guys to let me go pitching my product. It's not what I usually do on the show, but no. So I think our story in itself is interesting, right? So and being here for nearly 6 years shows you how fast some of this stuff has moved. When I started at Xtremepush, we had started to build out a customer data platform in our back end because of what customers were asking us to do. We started life, as our name would suggest, as a push provider, so a channel provider with email, web push, on-site functionality, everything within the app space. But what customers were looking for was, instead of doing 4 different things in one platform where you would build your audience and then send it to an endpoint to be able to execute, that the unification of CRM has kind of started to happen over the last 6 years. So what a customer data platform allows you to do is talk to disparate systems. So in the iGaming world, and it's not too different whether it's the e-commerce world or the banking and finance world where we work as well. iGaming brands have big disparate back-end systems that'll have player account management systems where all of their transactional data sits. They'll have retail front of store systems. Guys like William Hill, for instance, on the high street might have a loyalty card. All of this information can then be fed into one single data warehouse. Most brands would then have that sitting on their own environment. What a CDP in the engagement space, in the CRM space does is acts as another layer of truth that pulls out the right information against the user ID, essentially, puts it all together. And then the benefits of working with someone like Xtremepush that's proprietary is you can then start to put together all of that information about what's happening in your app, what's happening on your website, what are users browsing, when are they returning, what events are they hitting, all right? Putting that all together and then being able to build segments, whether they're automatically generated segments via AI or whether they're more manually generated segments, that's essentially what a CDP and a CRM does for an operator that works with us. You would then go out into all of your execution endpoints and run all your journeys from that. So it could be, how do we get someone to deposit or do a first bet when they sign up for the first time with a betting app? How do we get someone to finish their mortgage application when they go to the Bank of Ireland, for instance? All these types of use cases, different names, different aspects. But what they're doing is they're drawing information from that customer data platform to go, Steve has X, Y, Z in his profile. Ali has A, B, C. Therefore, we need to talk to them in these different ways.
Excellent.
I think that's really interesting, right? Because in our world, Dynamics is kind of the CDP, I guess, because it has all these different aspects to it in one single place. And I think, most of our customers are SMBs. They're smaller to medium-sized sort of UK clients. And they all have these tools in place. Like they have a CRM, they have an email platform, they have web analytics, but it's all separate, and quite often they have cheap solutions, right? Because we don't have huge money to invest in vast platforms. But those cheap solutions make it really difficult to then bring to the surface the insight, particularly that AI is going to need to be effective. So it's kind of like a balance between how much you invest in doing this platform and what you're going to get in return. One of the things I think is a real problem now is the confidence that certainly SMBs have, or leaders in SMBs have, in what it's going to do for them.
Yeah.
There used to be a figure that said if you put a CRM in place, for every $1 you put in, you'd get $8 out, right? And it was kind of like it'd be really interesting to understand what that number is now with AI, because I think the cost is going to increase, but equally the output is going to increase just as exponentially, right?
Ali, I think it's really interesting there as well, because we see every type of tech setup that you can think of, right? So what I think is interesting is that the better tech brands or the more nimble brands are the ones that are able to work with a tech spine or a tech stack or whatever we want to call it that can input into other things. So I always look at the different competitors or allies or brands that are in our space playing around with that. And the ones that tend to work are the ones that can work with different sources of data or different inputs very quickly with low-level inputs to be able to put that together. Use the e-commerce environment as a really good example. What happens then, though, is that you have like an amalgamation of things. So if I was setting up an e-commerce shop tomorrow, I would go and buy a Shopify integration. I would then probably use Klaviyo because Shopify own Klaviyo now. They bought them. There's my email marketing and my CDP sorted. There's my back-end infrastructure sorted. If I then wanted to plug something like Dynamics in, it then becomes, well, how does that work? So you kind of got, brands get two choices. They kind of go, build it themselves and make it very interoperable with lots of different stuff, or kind of go into different environments and stay in those environments. Most of those unified environments will work out in the end. It's just a cost thing, like you said, Alastair. That tends to be the more expensive way to do it if you went down Dynamics or an Adobe route or a Salesforce route. But what I think is really interesting is that 90% of the brands that I talk to, it's not greenfields. They'll have some type of CRM or engagement platform in there. The first questions I often ask are, Like, do you need to rip anything out? Are you getting the most out of it? Is it a limitation on your tech side, or is it a limitation on the way that you're putting data in? Is it a limitation way on your thinking around the tools that you've got? Are they actually giving you AI? If they're not, then they're behind. You need to move to a better platform that's going to give you that future-proof aspect of what they're doing. So, yeah, I find that stuff very interesting because there's you get the what's the old sheet with all the different logos on it? What do they call them? With all the different logos for any vendor. I always forget the name of those sheets. Punch that in for marketing technology or for CDPs, CRMs, and there's thousands of suppliers out there. The choice is huge. Work back from use cases how SMBs are going to get value out of it. How do I get these journeys up and running to return that dollar, return the $8 on the dollar that I spend, for instance?
So is there an approach you'd recommend for SMBs, for example? We've always kind of advocated do it in phases, right? Don't try and do everything at once. Do it step by step. I mean, you kind of talked about unified platforms. Do you have to do the whole thing at once, or can you still do that phased approach to things?
No, I think phased is usually the best for smaller businesses. Big bang tends to be businesses that have reached the end of the road with their current providers, and they're facing either heavy tech debt or they're facing the inability to kind of like execute on what they want because of previous tech debt. If you're a smaller provider, you've got the scope to be able to a smaller operator or business, you've got the scope to kind of iterate on what you're doing without getting locked in with most of the platforms. I'd always be looking vertical wise. Like, I always find it quite interesting that we would still have iGaming brands that don't necessarily use iGaming CRMs, which I would find interesting because they're not built for iGaming brands. And the same as like an e-commerce platform, but an e-commerce provider potentially not using one of the more known or self-built e-commerce platforms, right? Whether that's a big one like Shopify, or if it's a more specific one into your marketplace. I'd always look for best in class within your environment as well, because they tend to build features then that reflect what you're trying to do. There's no point having a, gamification and loyalty center in an e-commerce brand, but there certainly is within a sports betting brand, for instance. And that's the type of products that we go and build for our customers, as opposed to doing that for, say, a retail client. So I think for SMBs, getting your spine correct is really important. I always look at, you're not going to have a tech team that can self-build a data warehouse for you, potentially on AWS or whatever it might be. So what are the providers that can build something that will then connect into lots of different things for you if you need it? And that different thing could be something big, or it could be something small to fill a need.
Well, I just want to highlight one word you said a little while back, and it's future proofing.
Yeah.
Now, a huge area of focus right now, the hot topic is AI agents. We've had a couple of years now of ChatGPT, and we're all getting used to using it to build us some PowerPoint slides, or perhaps compose a nice email for us, or whatever that might look like. But now AI agents are very much coming to the fore. We're a Microsoft partner. It is front and center of everything they're doing at the moment. And we talk about agentic AI and us being agent bosses henceforth. And this is what the future looks like, at least down the Microsoft route. What I'd be interested to get the view of Xtremepush. Well, how are you, if at all, using AI agents?
Yeah, so I think this is the hottest topic for us. So I'm not speaking out of turn in our product roadmap, and I have to check with our product guys as we go with this. But the agentic layer is what's being built next. If without going too heavily into us, we've built a layer of brands being able to put all of their data into one place and then execute within one place with lots of different tooling that sits within that. The next step that brands and marketers are asking for is, how can I get to the agent layer or the agentic layer where I can say to an agent, go and have a look at all of this data, rather than me having to write an SQL or go and have to build audiences as it's done at the moment, or run it through an algorithm. You as the agent, go and look at all this data and give me some suggestions on audiences that I need to go after. Give me some suggestions on content that I need to create to go after that audience. Can you put them into a workflow that's a 12-step workflow to do that? What are some of the key triggers that they're doing on our website that we should be talking to them while they're in play, they're in situ? So that's the layer that comes next. For us at Xtremepush, the way we've built our technology is around transparent AI. So we've not black boxed everything. We put all the power of the data into the brand. So we talk about the democratization of data across your brand. So it's about making sure that you understand what are the models that are being applied to your users. Because I think from a gaming and even a more regulated environments like finance, that's going to be important down the line, where you're able to go in and say, well, Steve was in a churn model and Alastair was in a offer him a mortgage model because of this behavior, and you're able to prove that. When you're putting things in black boxes and you don't know what's happening, that's where I think AI can cause some troubles. We talk about human in the loop as the key aspect here. So if you do create a campaign on an audience, how do you build out the like approval process that a human goes in and gives it that sense check that's still required at the moment, I think, with the technology. What I think, Steve's really interesting is going to be, like, if you think back 10 years ago, the way that we engaged with search, or 20 years ago when we first engaged with search, 10 years ago, the way that we engaged with, new mobile technology, this conversation will be a snapshot in time, and in 5 years' time, everything will be done through an agentic bot, potentially. So it's about understanding what that looks like as a skill set going forward. And there are things that I'm doing in my day-to-day work that a year ago, 18 months ago, it would just be like, how much time has this saved me? It's just ridiculous. Do I trust all the results sometimes? On my last chat GPT turned me into Garibaldi, or whatever it is, image search, then like sometimes you got to check it all before you deal with it.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of the learn, react, take action kind of model, right? And
yeah,
if we take this back to our kind of client size again, that's where they can get a real differentiator, right? Because we can't throw resource at stuff like some enterprise clients can. So being able to adapt when the client does something different is a real challenge for them, because they can't put loads of people out, and there's, particularly doing this stuff en masse. Whereas an AI agent can do this almost instantaneously based on behaviors of other people and what it's understood. It is, I think it can be a real game changer for SMBs. But the critical part is if the price point is right for them and the confidence is there for them to adopt it.
I also think what's going to be really funny here is that we always think of it from a business perspective as marketers. How's it going to help my marketing team react to a customer's needs and stuff? There's going to be a big customer reaction in expectations around what you get, right? Like we saw that with chatbots and the speed of people being able to get answers on FAQs, natural language processing that helped speed all of that up. So I didn't have to sit on a call center. But that only worked for people of my generation. If my mum, she's going to sit on a call center or go to a bank, that's what she does. Okay. So as customers get smarter too, the way our technology interacts and works with it, that's going to change. I use a good example. Like I was on trying to buy a birthday present last minute for my wife the other day. And I went on to an e-commerce shop for one of the best retailers in the UK and Ireland. And they had a sign up going, you can only pick up physical gift cards in Ireland because we're re-platforming our e-commerce platform at the moment. This is October before the December rush, and I can't buy an online gift voucher with a modern, what looked like a Shopify stack to me, because of some reason. I would suspect because of the way that they've built their regionalisation out versus the UK, because I could buy one in pounds, couldn't buy one on the Irish shop at the moment. Sorry, customer, you can't buy one. That's me going straight to their competitor to buy a €200 voucher, right? So, like, these are the things where you're going, what's a churn piece here? What's it actually affecting? And it's like speed to customers and delivery is going to be so important. And this is what these agents and all of the ability to react quickly to customers is what's going to be driven by AI, I think, as a consumer.
Well, just to let you know, it's my birthday soon. I will accept pounds, euro.
Yeah, no worries. I don't think you'd probably want to be getting anything from the site that I was looking at, unless you're there. But I could definitely go and have a look at something that might be a bit more appropriate, Steve.
Good man. I will steer clear for the time being then. I'd like some kind of final reflections from you both. One thing, and it's interesting you make that point about the retailer. Every leader thinks they want AI, and every single newsletter they get, it's about AI and how you should be using it within your business. And a prime example, perhaps, if a different AI solution or no AI solution was in place, it could have, negated that particular scenario that you experienced the other day on the retailer's website. So actually, what is it these leaders really need? Is it different to what they think they need when it comes down to AI?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're still in that climb of the hype phase, and I think we're getting better at understanding what deliverables are going to be coming from a leadership perspective. I think at the moment a lot of it's get AI in, whether it's on our sales or we need AI because it's a buzzword, and so what's the actual outcome that this is going to deliver? That you need to go back to those fundamentals and look at how is it going to save my team time. If we're talking from a CRM team, how's it going to save them time? How's it going to make their life easier? How's it going to make our product stand out from all of the other products or not fall below them because we're not meeting the expectations of the current customer market? I think that's key as well. So keeping up on that trend. I think brands need to be really smart about the research that they do into the type of partners that they want to look at, from a future-proofing perspective. I think there's a lot of window dressing at the moment on brands that are talking about AI that are just slapping it on everything. I could go start a lemonade stand out the front of my house and call it the AI lemonade stand. Do you know what I mean? And people come and buy it at the moment. I don't think that's necessarily a bubble that's going to be bursting, but I think that people are getting a little bit more kind of across that, and particularly in the marketing space. We've seen this before when the prediction of the death of SEO, the death of SEM marketing. There's so many different things have been predicted that haven't really come to pass. They were going to kill cookies for 3 or 4 years. Still haven't done that because I haven't figured out how to have a better way to track people across the open web. So I think keeping ahead of the trend and understanding what it is, but then picking out partners that can actually match the function of your business is what's going to be important.
Ali, this is quite a broad question, but we've spoken about CDPs and how Xtremepush are going to be using AI or using them at the moment, how that will look like in the future. Where does AI and CRM go next?
I just to put some final reflections on this, right? That for me, the real progress comes from getting the basics right, and a CRM is part and parcel of that, right? Making sure you're connecting your systems, making sure you're cleaning your data, building a clear view of your customers. That's where the real value of AI shows up, right? Unifying your CRM, your marketing, your customer insights, you can get to see a full picture of your client. Once that's in place, I think AI becomes genuinely useful, not just clever, but commercially valuable. I think just stay grounded on it, right? Focus on the connection over complexity. Get the systems talking to each other. For SMBs, I think it's absolutely achievable to do all of these things. But again, take that phased approach to it that we advocate in the CRM world. I think that's a good route forward for me.
Sounds very good to me. So in closing, Will, any final advice to anyone listening? What do they do with AI? How do they get it in? Leave us with that.
Yeah, I think the key thing is start to talk to the partners that you're already working with and get a sense of their roadmap. That's probably the simplest thing that you can do. If you're not content that they're doing what is going to be right for your business or don't seem to be on top of it, if they're not continually updating their product, continually fixing problems, like all technology businesses have, then are they the partner to take your business forward? Would be the big question that I would have. As far as like practical stuff, I would be going out to your team members or your employees and starting to look at areas that it's actively affecting the way that they work immediately, that they're already probably using without you guys maybe even realizing that, if you're a business leader, for instance. And I'm sure you've covered that on your previous podcasts around, people punching in data into ChatGPT and spitting out lists and stuff, that potentially is PII and stuff like that when they're building out email campaigns. Like, there's lots of governance that goes with that. So how do you make sure that you're managing that side? I would be looking at, obviously, it goes back to 101s like Ali is talking about. There is like, what are your competitors doing? What are the brands in the space that you're working in doing really cool that you think is driven by AI? Go and find out what that is and find out what they're using. And it might be a plug-in thing that sits on front of your website that only costs 500 quid and it looks really cool and it addresses a need. You know what I mean? So like, there's going to be an answer to most of your questions if you get into the research of it and have a look. Don't get sucked in by too many slippery sales guys like me, but actually get under the hood as well. That's the hard bit. I get that. I sit on both sides of the fence. So but you've got a lot of questions that you can ask to get things moving.
Perfect. Ali, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Will for joining us, and thank you to the audience for joining us for our final episode of the season 1 of QInsight. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe. You can now find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.
Excellent. Thanks, Ali. So we'll be back soon for season 2 with more guests and digging deeper into CRM, AI, and how to better engage with your customers. In the meantime, to learn more about how QGate helps businesses grow through Dynamics 365 and Copilot, visit qgate.co.uk. Well, thank you once again. See everyone soon.